What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be another very important day as we have new updates coming out on the charts and some updates from President Trump involving his tariffs on China. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia stock plus a $100 cash reward. Deposits $10,000 or more to get $300 worth of Nvidia plus $100, or deposits $50,000 or more to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon, in just about 9 days from now. So please check out my link down below to sign up. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the overall market. So looking at SPY and the QQQ right now, we're looking quite bullish. SPY got this nice bounce off our 200 EMA last week. And since then, we managed to break past our EMAs right here. We broke the resistance at 665. We mentioned if this broke, we're going to be looking for an attempt for 670. We ended up getting back above that, and now we're favoring an all-time high test on SPY, which would take us a couple of points higher. That is looking a bit more bullish for now, but we need to break past the all-time high to continue this trend, and we're going to continue to squeeze if that breaks. However, the last time SPY hit the all-time high near this 674 area, we got a very sharp rejection. So I'd recommend being very, very careful. Now, there was also a rising wedge-like pattern developing on SPY, which led to the big sell-off. We're also developing a rising wedge-like pattern right now, but once again, there's no guarantees with these. These could be 50-50, so the market is still indecisive. However, right now, we do look bullish, and I think we might be going a bit higher on SPY, and then we'll see if we get a rejection at some key levels. But I just want to break down exactly why that is and what President Trump is saying, which could be affecting this. Also on the QQQ, we had a rising wedge-like pattern, which led to this big sell-off. Now we're developing another rising wedge, but we're at the all-time high. We're at the all-time high near 613. If we break that on the QQQ, we could be looking for 615 plus. But if we can't break that, if we consolidate and start rejecting, we could turn back down to the gap fill at 604. So I'll talk about what's more likely to happen, what I predict is going to likely happen first, and I'll break down more details about the charts. Let's first talk about President Trump, though. So we had some updates that came out from him and China. So today, President Trump came out and he outlined his demands for China to avoid a 100% tariff hike next month. He's calling for more U.S. soybean purchases and more action by China to take on some other issues that are very important that he's been talking about. He's also talked about how he believes that the U.S. has lots of leverage, and there's a lot of things that he wants for there to be a big deal. So he made that very, very clear. Also, President Trump expressed his dismay towards the port fees that went up, once again causing more and more expenditures for businesses. And that's not what President Trump liked to see. So that's part of the reason why he wants to see a deal as soon as possible. We also have this quote that came out from President Trump. He said, and I quote, "I think China's been very respectful of us. They're paying tremendous amounts of money to us in the form of tariffs. As you know, they're paying 55%. That's a lot of money. China's paying 55% and a potential 155% come November 1st unless we make a deal." So now, instead of just threatening 100% tariffs, President Trump is talking about a 155% tariff on China instead. But he said that this will likely come, it could come, unless they make a very, very big deal. And he made that very, very clear. Then President Trump added that he expects that we will probably work out a very fair trade deal with President Xi of China. I think most of you will be there. It will be very exciting. So that's what we heard from President Trump today about this. He's saying that there's going to likely be a deal coming, but if we don't get the deal, then there is a potential 155% tariff coming out on China. Then on top of this, President Trump said this right here. He says, "I think we're going to end up having a fantastic deal with China. It's going to be a great trade deal. It's going to be fantastic for both countries, and it's going to be fantastic for the entire world." Once again, he also said that China were the ones that threatened the U.S. with their rare earths, and then he mentioned that he threatened them back with the tariffs. But he insisted that despite this, it's still, like, it's mainly just politics, and they still have a very, very good relationship. So he made that very clear. We still have a good relationship with China. So what's going on with this? Well, as you know, there's a lot of tension between the U.S. and China. We have these export controls being led by China, and the U.S. is now threatening to tariffs back on them. President Trump is now increasing the tariff threshold. He's now saying it could go as high as 155%, but he's just trying to incentivize them to make a deal. Keep in mind, last week, what helped the market bounce was President Trump said that his tariffs are not sustainable on China at rates of 100% or more, meaning that this is a short term trade negotiation tactic that President Trump is using. The stock market knows this, and this is part of why we're still pushing despite these higher tariff threats. And that's, once again, a good piece of news. The market is still okay with all of this. So, what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks? President Trump will be meeting up with Xi Jinping. They should be negotiating already, and there's going to likely be a deal coming, according to President Trump. So, we'll see how that ends up going. He said that it's going to be a fantastic deal for both sides, and he wants to be very reasonable about it. That's what President Trump also added. So that's important news so far. Once again, the tonality is different compared to what we saw earlier on, but keep in mind this is all just based off how China is going to react and President Trump's tactics, at least for the time being. So like him or dislike him, whatever you guys want to do, it's completely fine with me. I'm just here to be very unbiased about this. Now, there's more news that's coming out that's not too good. The government shutdown has become the third longest in history with no end in sight. And this is not the best of news because, firstly, it affects millions of everyday Americans when it comes to services and payments. When it comes to federal workers, hundreds of thousands of Americans are not going to be paid or their payments will be delayed depending on their departments. And finally, it's also going to be affecting different sectors of the US economy. It's going to be affecting people's abilities to get paid, and it's going to be affecting data releases. So, a lot of different things are affected by this. This is not good news. And we're waiting to see if some kind of funding bill can pass. As of right now, we're on day 19, and this is just continuing, unfortunately. So, actually, technically, we're on day 20. That's not the best of news. We're on day 20 now, the third longest shutdown in history. And that's why a lot of data is just not really coming out right now. There's not really much data until we get to Friday. So for today, we didn't really have much data, just mainly bill auctions and nothing else that's too crazy. But for tomorrow, it's going to be Tuesday, October 21st. We basically have our Red Book coming out. Then we have Waller from the Fed giving a speech at 9 o'clock a.m. and then at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing else too significant for tomorrow. On Wednesday, there's not really much coming out, very, very minor data. But then on Thursday, we have some data from the Kansas Fed. And initial jobless claims will not be coming out due to the government shutdown. It's still going to take time for us to get all this data. And then for Friday, we have CPI. However, so that's going to be a very big catalyst. We're expecting a slight increase year over year, so we'll see how it goes. But the biggest piece of data for the week is on Friday. Otherwise, most data is more quiet. Now, two more things before I get on with the charts. There wasn't really much for earnings today, but now earnings season's kicking off. For tomorrow in the morning, we have Coca-Cola announcing its earnings. And then after market close, we have Netflix. And on Wednesday, it's going to be a very, very big day since we have AT&T in the morning alongside other communications stocks. And then we have Tesla and IBM after market close. Tesla is going to be a big one. So get ready for Tesla as we have some big updates coming out. Finally, fear makes up the majority of sentiment right now. There is still some fear in the markets. This is going to likely adjust, though, and get closer to neutral. That gives the market more leeway to push more. The market's overall momentum is at neutral for now. And I also think that the put to call option ratio is at extreme fear. This tells us that, once again, there's been a lot of shorting going on within the markets as the ratio is going up. Is that part of why the market is squeezing, or are we going to see even more upside? We'll see about that. The VIX is also neutral. We're going to see how it ends up reacting to support. For now, the market is in a more like neutral position, although we're seeing the overall sentiment at fear. My opinion is like it's a bit more neutral. So let's talk about the charts now. What do I think is going to happen moving forward? Right now, we're looking bullish. Why is that? Because SPY dumped when President Trump announced the tariffs all the way down to 646. We bounced, made a higher low right over here. Technically, this is a higher low, than we bounced again. And now we're breaking structure right over here. So see this line we're breaking right here? That's a sign that we're trying to break out. Going for all-time highs. I think we do go a little bit higher. We're bullish for now, holding above 672 nicely in the after hours. I think we favor all-time highs. But despite us going for all-time highs, I would still be very careful because the last time SPY touched 672 to 674, we got a lot of rejections here, a lot of chop. Then we saw a big move right back down. So I would still be very careful. We also have a rising wedge. These do once again, typically lead to downside, at least from a technical standpoint. But in the recent market days, I'm noticing that they're about 50-50. Half the times they pan out, half the times they don't. So it doesn't really matter too much or as much as it typically would. But here is one red flag about the rally. There's this big gap left on SPY at 664. Are we going to push to like 674, go a little higher, then reject and turn back down to fill that gap? Or do we just keep on running? We'll have to see about that. But for now, the daily chart on SPY looks more bullish to me. We're looking more bullish on the daily time frame, looking at the PPO. And I think for now we're favoring upside. So look at the 4-hour time frame. We're still looking quite bullish. So I think that as of right now, with this low right here and the fact that we're trying to make a higher low, we're favoring upside on SPY for 674, and the odds favor more upwards directions. I think that we're favoring the upside. For now, the most likely possibility is this. We're going to likely go higher. But before I go over my prediction, let me just go over the bullish and bearish cases. So to be super bullish, if you want to be a big bull, you want to see us not only break towards all-time highs, but actually break past them. Break 674 on SPY, and this is going to take off for new all-time highs. 675, 676 are likely coming if we break past 674. Remember, every point will be a new resistance once you hit all-time highs, and we do once again have potential to test them. If we break all-time highs, we're really bullish. If you're bearish, your argument is that this is a rising wedge. We have a gap to fill at 664, and that every time we've hit 674 to 672, we rejected. The bearish case is that we go up and then we reject. And if we lose 670, if 670 fails us on the daily, then I think we fill the gap for 664 all over again. And we'll see if we bounce from there. If not, we will be dumping even more. So the bearish cases, we get a rejection, we lose 670 to start dumping. The bullish cases, you hold above 674 to be more bullish and continue to run. I predict tomorrow we push and we actually favor the bullish case a little bit more for 674. I think SPY is going to test the all-time high. However, I don't know if we're going to break past it. The last time we touched this, we got a big rejection. So we have to see if we could hold above 674 or not. If we don't and we lose 670, I'm looking for that gap fill back down for the rising wedge to pan out. So I think it's going to be a very, very big test on SPY. I predict we go a little bit higher for 674. I think we push a couple more points, and then we're going to see if we get a rejection. We might get that rejection depending on this rising wedge. So please remember that, guys. That's what I'm seeing so far. On the QQQ, as you guys can tell, we're making higher lows and higher lows. If we're bearish, okay, you want to see us basically lose support right here at this 610 area. If 610 fails us, we have that gap to fill all the way down towards 604. But if you're bullish, if you want to be a big bull on the triple Q, we need to hold above 613. If 613 breaks on the QQQ, I think we go for 615 plus. That's the more bullish case. So break 613, we're bullish. Lose 610, we're turning back down. As of right now, don't forget on the daily time frame, we're looking more bullish on the daily. So I think we might be trying to go a little higher, but there is that gap all the way down towards 603. So be careful. On the 4-hour, we look bullish. We're favoring the all-time high at 613, maybe even a little bit higher. So I think that the QQQ is going for the all-time high. 613 to 614 can be tested, but then be careful because of the rising wedge. That could still lead to rejection. I still see a risk of that if we don't hold above 613. I think we could touch 613 to 614, go a little bit higher on the QQQ, but then there is that risk of getting some kind of rug pull as we have a gap to fill at 604. On the IWM Russell 2000, we're looking more bullish. As you can tell, we've been making higher highs and higher lows. And since that low we got 2 weeks ago, we've been actually trying to bounce. So in my opinion, we look bullish. We're actually favoring an attempt for 250, excuse me, guys, 250. If we lose 245, we have a gap to fill back down towards 243. And if that fails us, there's another gap down here at 238. But technically speaking, we're favoring 250 as our target, maybe a little bit higher on the IWM. Then we're going to see if it turns after that. For now, we do have a more upside potential for 2 to 4 points. So I could see some upside for now. ES, we have a head and shoulders like pattern, but we might try to invalidate this if we keep going. I think we look bullish. If we lose 6750, we could be dumping back down to 6700 flat, but I don't really favor that. I think for now, we're favoring 6800. I think ES goes for 6800, and then we're going to see if we reject off that or not. But for now, look for more upside. 6800 is likely coming on ES. Look for more upside for now. On NQ, we might be going a little bit higher as well. We could be looking for these all-time highs to be tested at 25,400. So look for another push for upside. We need to break and hold this to continue to pump for 25,500. If we don't and we reject near 25,400, we could be retesting 25,200. So please be very careful with this. There might be some upside, then we'll see if you reject or not. On Bitcoin, we're making lower highs right here. Notice we keep on rejecting off this trend line. We need to break and hold above 114,000 to be really bullish. But if we lose 109,000, we're going to be trending back down. I favor some consolidation for now. Then we could be trending back down to 109,000. So be very careful, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. On Tesla, we have a nice looking inverse head and shoulders setup. Approaching earnings, we're looking a bit more bullish. If Tesla hypothetically loses 439, though, we're looking for 436, which is where the 20 EMA happens to be. But as long as we're above 439, Tesla's going to be favoring 450, then 455. And I think that's the most likely possibility. I think Tesla consolidates here, and then we're going to attempt to go for like 450 and 455 for a temporary push approaching its earnings. Then we'll see how it ends up reacting, depending on what Elon and the team end up announcing. But for now, Tesla looks more bullish. Nvidia is not looking too good to me for bulls because we're doing it not the best of jobs at holding above 184. Reclaim 184, then we're looking for an attempt to fill the gap at 188. But if we can't, we're going to be favoring a move back down towards 180. We're consolidating right here, and I think we're going to likely continue to consolidate. Then eventually 180 is likely coming, so be very careful, and we could end up like dipping back down. Appl might be looking for a small retracement unless we hold above 262.5. If we don't, I could see us retest 260 before it tries to bounce, and we'll see what happens after that. For other tickers, we have Netflix. We have an inverse head and shoulders like pattern. Nice bounce on Netflix. I think we're going to try to go higher if we can break past 1250. We're looking for an attempt for 1262. So I think Netflix looks more bullish. As long as we hold above 1250, we could be looking for a bounce. Might kind of consolidate. If we're trying to push for 1260, then we'll see if it rejects after that. But with the inverse head and shoulders forming, we look bullish on Netflix to me. On MSTR, we're looking quite decent. We went up higher as we predicted. However, there is a gap to fill below, so I think this might actually dip unless we hold above 300. If 300 does not hold, we have a gap to fill back down to 290. And I think this might actually be dipping back down to 290, so be careful. On Celsius, there's support at 63.8. We need to hold this. If not, we're dipping back down to 62. Look for 63, and we'll see if we bounce. If not, we're looking for a move back down to 62. Supermicro is making a double bottom-like move here, but it's forming some wicks. Just like Nvidia, it might be retesting 54 flat before it tries to bounce, but it's just range-bound for the time being. On Palantir, there's tough resistance at 184. We could retest 184, and we'll see if it rejects back down towards our wick right over here around the lower 170s. I think we might be retesting 184 before it turns. Rivian looks more bullish. It might be looking for 13.25 or a little bit above that to 13.34, and we'll see if it turns back down or not. SoFi is in a range right here. We have resistance at this 29 area and support down here at 26. I think that 29 could be tested. We'll see if we turn back down towards the 28 area. But for now, there is going to be some upside potential. On AMD, we're making higher lows right here. If we end up losing 232, we're looking for a dump back down. But as long as we hold above this, we're going to be favoring upside. For now, there's some tough resistance on AMD, so I could see this retest 236 before it tries to bounce and break out higher. But overall, it's looking more bullish to me. ARM looks more bullish. As long as we don't lose 168, we're going to be favoring a push back up to 175. For PayPal, this could be forming an inverse head and shoulders. We're going to be looking for a small move down to probably form this right shoulder before trying to bounce. Coinbase is looking decent. However, there is that gap below. We might be retesting 337 or a little bit below that before it tries to bounce again. But I might see a small retracement to 337 first before it tries to bounce. Amazon looks a bit more bullish. As long as we hold above 215, we're going to be favoring 218 for some temporary upside. Then we'll see if we reject off this or not. On Meta, we have resistance right here at 733, and we have support down here at 725. I think we could be dipping back down to 725, and we'll see if we bounce. Otherwise, there's some downside potential. Google is also trying to bounce right here, making higher lows. We have support right here at 252, and we have resistance at 258. So this is favoring an attempt for 260. It looks a bit more bullish to me. On Microsoft, you have a nice double bottom here. We're watching 515 to see if this bounces, continues to push for 520. Might retest 515, and we'll see if we bounce or not. On Oracle, we're looking a little bit weaker. We're going to see if we could hold 276 or not. Got a bit of a sell-off today. This downside move does favor either 275 or 272 for a little bit more downside. Then we're going to be looking for a bounce. Might wick here, then from a bounce back up to like 280 plus. So there might be some downside coming before it tries to bounce. DJT is also rejecting. It might consolidate and dip back down to the lower 15s. The VIX looks more bearish. It could be dipping a bit more for 17.39, and we'll see how it ends up reacting. The 10-year is dipping. The dollar is also pushing a bit with an inverse head and shoulders, not really affecting the market too much. And then crude is kind of flat here, might be retesting 57.27. So my honest view is that for now, the market looks a bit more in favor of bulls. We might see SPY push another 2 to 3 points. We might see the QQQ push another 2 to 3 points as well, but there are rising wedges forming. And keep in mind, as we get close to these all-time highs, we have rejected historically on SPY and the QQQ. So could we go higher? Yes, we could be going a little bit higher on SPY and the QQQ. We still favor upside, but there is still risk here. We have rejected in the past at these high levels. So I would warn you to be very, very careful the higher we go. But for now, just play the chart in front of you and just know we're going to likely go a bit higher based off what we're seeing. There are gaps to fill at 664 on SPY and then another one at 604 on the QQQ. But we might be going a bit higher first before we see a potential rejection, but we'll see just to be safe. All right. So look for more upside tomorrow, and then we'll see how we end up reacting to the all-time highs on SPY and the QQQ. Stay patient, guys, and I thank you all so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another update tomorrow before market open. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best. Take care of yourselves, and peace out.